Good afternoon, everyone. It's now 3:30. Let's call to order today, August 29th, Ways and Means Committee meeting. Please remember that the microphones are very sensitive.
Cover's still on too.
Covers off. I guess that's a question for IT.
Did you hit the buttons?
No, I pressed the buttons. They were black before. Now they show, but nothing's on the screen.
He's spending his money on the system.
Worked fine for me yesterday. Not working on
Okay, so we just can't see ourselves. Okay, it is working for YouTube, so it is on the internet, it's just not on these two screens, so. Again, remember, silence your phones and electronic devices. And would everyone now please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carrie Ann, roll call, please.
Annette Stockett,
Present.
Russia, Donald,
Here.
Fagion,
Here.
Hines,
Here.
Sierra, Paduk,
Here.
Keeney,
Here.
Bennett,
Here.
one absent.
One absent. Okay, thank you. Okay, first thing today, the county exec's office is a request, a local law to create new Department of Information Technology Services and to transfer the functions of the Department of General Services pertaining to the administration and delivery of information technology services to the new Department of Information Technology Services. Can I get a motion and a second for discussion? Fagion, second, please. I'll second. Benton and Cheney, second. Who is, Alicia? Come on up. I heard you're also filling in for Lawrence.
Yeah, you know what, that's gonna take that from me today.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. And if
Of
you
course.
just indulge, I can't sit, I had surgery on Friday, so if it's all right, I'm just able, I just want to make sure that I'm here to address this today. So thank you, we're in very different times right now, the IT department and what we've merged since 2015 has become a very different world since then. We're respectfully requesting that we're able to separate and change this local law. It's a time for us that when we merged in 2015, it served its purposes and did what we needed it to do, but we're at a very different time, day and age between cybersecurity, and we truly need a CIO who's going to respond and answer to the county exec and this legislative team for strategic direction going forward. When we put the local law in place, we were a very decentralized organization. What I mean by that is that we used to allow departments to have shadow IT, allowed to be able to make decisions and, about updates. What I gave the other day when Legislator Hines asked was, I gave an example. Many of you remember putting your windows on there and you never used to do the update. Nobody wanted the new bells and whistles. You got used to what you had. Can't do that anymore. When we sit there in departments and we need to have updates and changes, we need to have that driven by the IT department, by our CIO strategically, not only for cybersecurity, but also just how we operate within Orange County government. So again, I just ask for support like we did before with the opportunity to be able to separate IT and drive us into the next century.
Okay, thank you. Questions from committee members? Mike A?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since no one else was going to ask the question, I figured let me try. Where to start? It served its purpose in 2015 and going forward. What was its purpose?
Well, at that time, it was to be able to consolidate, save funds.
Did we ever save funds? Did anyone ever come here and say, hey, we've saved so much every year?
I can attest to, I remember Legislator Hines was asking that as well, but I remember stating at one point in one committee when we sat in, sometimes you're not going to see the dollar, but you're going to find the efficiency across the departments and across the organization. It's not
Can we ever quantify how many dollars we're saving?
I would be remiss if I said to you at this moment we can, but I can tell you right now that underneath the leadership when Commissioner Burkle was here, while I was privy to that and what I saw, we negotiated. We definitely saved, we had contracts and what we looked at and what we did. And then again, the efficiencies throughout the organization, there is, you know, if we could quantify it, there would be tremendous savings.
Tremendous, millions of dollars of savings?
I'm reluctant right now to commit to anything, but I would think over the years, for the 7 years or 8 years that it's been in there, yeah, I would think it'd be close to that.
Many millions of dollars
Yes.
for 7 years.
Correct.
And we did that so we can have those many million dollars of savings going forward. So by logic, to undo it is to undo the many millions of dollars of savings.
But it may cost you more in the long run by not doing it because we need to drive IT differently going forward. You can't continue to operate in
Now-
IT.
Now, I'm just confused, since we merged it and it was going to be optimal when we did that. We were going to have a great IT department by merging.
Yeah.
Why is it not optimal now? Why would not IT work going forward the way we are?
Skill sets, needs.
So you would bring people in that had the skill set. Why not bring them in under the structure that you have today?
Because the ideal opportunity for us right now to separate IT is to bring in a CIO for strategic vision leadership, something that's digital transformation, innovation.
Bring in someone we don't have.
Correct. Correct.
Do we know who we want to bring in?
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
You
And
don't.
part of that,
You don't know.
nope, and
Does the
we,
executive know?
nope, not at all. We want to be able to do an executive search for this, and the way to do it is to do it as a CIO. We don't even have a title as a CIO. It would be a commissioner right now. So in order to start moving that forward and make some of these changes for IT, we need to do the local law first that allows us to separate the department,
Mm.
and then we could start hammering all the details.
So I understand in the long run, it might be more expensive. You said not to do this, but can you quantify what the cost to do this will be? The additional millions?
We intend on giving you a presentation, yes, when we come back in October with all of that.
So first we vote it in, then we get the presentation.
Well, the idea was to feel the temperature as to whether or not people would be interested in doing this before. we
Well, I
did.
would vote yes if I liked what the numbers were. I would vote no if I didn't like the numbers. So how am I going to vote today not knowing the numbers?
We don't have them yet, and the idea is that we have an idea. It was to go with the presentation that we have right now with the numbers that are being presented to the budget from Sam Swykotter as the commissioner right now. And then we would put money in,
But those are not the numbers that will be the actual numbers.
because we want to have a CIO come in. I don't want to create this department without a CIO overseeing it and having their
Okay.
input.
I think I made my point. I'm not sure how I can vote here, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'll just add that the main thing we're trying to prevent is something like what was the county in Suffolk County,
Correct.
whose countless millions and millions of dollars paid because of someone's able to actually break in to their system, hack their system and cause melee.
Well, it's a little,
I mean, I don't know, does anybody know that what's been published as what Suffolk believes it's cost them for this event?
There was a recent news report that Suffolk County spent $5.2 million investigating what went wrong in the
sure.
cybersecurity.
I don't,
And they
Yeah,
still don't
so-
have estimates on how
Sure.
much manpower hour they lost, plus, data and data breach.
sure, no doubt that that's something we don't want to happen because it's very expensive when it does happen. It's just a little disconcerting thinking that we've had a structure now for the last 6, 7 years that you're saying would have made that possible, and we need to go to a structure that won't make that possible.
No. We just need to move in the right direction. I mean, we deal with tax every single week. We have multiple, so we're working, we're doing it. We just need to change how we're doing our operations going forward for IT.
Okay, and when do we expect these numbers to be presented to us?
For the October hearing, we want to do
The
a full
budget- the
presentation.
budget hearing?
Yeah. I would ask for an executive session prior to the actual budget hearing because of the sensitivity of a lot of details you're going to be putting out there about the department.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Okay, so this is similar to last week where they asked to create 9 positions in the health department. And they put an RFP out that they started doing things backwards here. Right? So I would have like legislative and pockets like to see something before asking us to create the department. And changing the charter is a big deal.
Understood.
Right? And we have no numbers, no information before us today, other than requesting for a charter change. I'm trying to remember how many times we've changed the charter since I've been in the county. And I guarantee you it's less than a hand. Okay, so it's important business when we start changing the charter. The person that's in charge of information technology now, I think she's in the room,
Yes,
right? How are you?
Sam Swickata.
Right?
Yes.
So, and doing a good job dealing
Yes.
with this daily. What's gonna happen to her?
She's still the Commissioner of General Services, Procurement.
So we're creating another / commissioner or CIO.
Yes,
right?
yes.
How many people do you envision going in that department?
Immediately anywhere between 6 to 12.
And how many people will come from general services?
Total on the IT department is 13. 13,
So those 13 will transfer over
yes,
and we'll have 6 to 12 additional
yes, easily,
easily.
easily. Yep.
And just to their point about that, it costs Suffolk County $5.2 million. Even if we put all of these positions in there, there's no guarantee that we wouldn't suffer the same consequences.
Anyone who
as
tells you,
Suffolk County.
anyone who tells you that would be lying. No,
Exactly,
definitely not. You
exactly,
can only do your best.
exactly. Do you have any ballpark figure on this new department?
I do. Right now, what we have is a $10 million budget that you vote on, and we were thinking of putting $2 million on the side.
So we already have $10 million
Mhm,
in your budget for IT.
Correct.
Now we're transferring that over to a new department.
Correct.
And you think it's only gonna cost us $2 million more?
Correct. That's what we're looking to do for contingency
Huh,
right
okay.
now.
All right. Just if you could bring this to the county exec's attention for me, because this is like the second time I had to ask for specific numbers on how much these things are gonna cost. Maybe they could just offer that up rather than one of the legislators having to ask how much these things cost. All right?
I appreciate that, and I apologize for that.
No, that's.
But the truth of the
you-
matter-
Trust me, you're not the only one.
Well, and
Okay.
I'm looking
Everybody-
forward to presenting to you. I will
Right.
have a full-fledged presentation for you with all details, and I promise you that in October, that will be presented the way that you need it to be.
So your reasoning for putting this today rather than after October is just to get the temperature?
In order for, no, well, to get the temperature, but to look at the skills, to change the skill sets of what we need in order to get a CIO title, we have to have, it's like the chicken and the egg. HR can't do anything until we have the separation of the department. I can't move on anything, any of those titles, anything that we need to move forward with until the department is separated.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
We can't, you know, the difference, there would be different job titles. I mean, any CIO in New York State will tell you, any of the commissioners that are in other counties, it's a struggle for what we need to staff going forward and the titles that are there.
Yeah, I understand all of that, but you can present anything you want to us with a draft on it. Okay, to say that you can't do anything unless you officially have a separate department. I just don't agree with that, but hey, I'm gonna vote for it, right? But I'm looking forward to your presentation in October. And like I said, I don't agree with human resources that you can't move forward without specifically having this done. But that's just my own opinion.
I'll just answer that question. Legislator McDonald. The issue is that when you create a new position, that has to be approved by the state. And so in order to present it to the state, if we present it now as part of one department, they likely would not allow a separate position that wouldn't be subject to testing, that wouldn't be a managerial position of that nature. And so when you have a separate department, that gives the state the rationale to go ahead and put that person in that category, like other department heads that are not going to be part of management, not, subject to testing and things. That's what we've been told by HR. That's why you would go ahead and separate it out ahead of time as to departments and then ask the state for this position, because they wouldn't take it as a separate position within the combined department.
Okay, but that still doesn't change my opinion. That's just legally, you got approval from the state, doesn't mean you can't create the draft on them pending the creation of the department. Because we're not gonna send them up to the state till they come to us in October. Okay?
Understood. I hear it's a different way of presenting.
Right, that's all,
Gotcha.
that's all I'm saying.
Understood.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Mr. Hines?
Just a statement. We had the exact same questions last week at Rules. And we were told we're gonna get a package to put together eventually and pass the nothing. However many people there, you know.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mike A.
Just quickly, one more time, I know you gave the answers to Mr. O'Donnell. I should have remembered. The number of people in that department now? that are gonna-
13,
That are gonna switch over, 13.
correct.
The additional amount you're gonna bring aboard,
Somewhere between 6 to 12 has been recommended.
6 to 12 additional. Includes the CIO,
Yes,
6 to 12.
and we're still lower than any other county in New York State, pretty much. Comparable for budgeting.
And how many people would be left in the general services?
Yes, that was gonna be mine.
I'm not sure, Sam, how many are underneath your department?
Records and courier included?
Yeah. 15.
15 after the transfer of the, okay. Thank you, Ian.
Sure.
And again, conceptually, I might not be against this if I had the numbers here today. I just want you to understand.
Understood.
Understood. Mr. O'Donnell?
Just one final thing for Sam. Did you get a stipend for doing the IT stuff besides your,
No, I'm just.
No.
Really? wow, I didn't want you to lose any money. You should have been getting a stipend if you were doing both. Because most people that do two departments get a stipend. All right, so I'm surprised they didn't take care of it. So, thank you.
Mr. Burpo, I mean, that was when we brought Burpo together with IT and general services. That was just merged. The direct savings was you had one department head salary and benefits that wasn't needed anymore.
You got a stipend.
Did he?
It was 12,000.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just also say I'd be remiss, this has nothing to do with Sam and the department. The IT department is doing an incredible job of where they're at right now, and Sam also managing this. This has nothing to do with reflecting on any of that at all.
No, I agree. I said that when I started my comments, but I'm shocked that she didn't get a stipend. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Cheney?
Just relative to the budget numbers that you tossed out, the $10 million that you're going to be coming to us for, and the 2 million contingency that you're looking at.
Mhm.
How much of that 10 million is already being spent by the county under the current circumstances with IT being part of OGS, and how much will move from out of the OGS budget?
Their budget is already separated. That is IT's budget, and then procurement has their own piece. It's already separated. It's been like that since it's.
So is it 10 in additional or 10 total?
No, I apologize, Sam, the total.
sorry.
budget-
10 is a total, we're actually down 1% from last year's budget for IT. IT is on its own budget and general services purchasing has.
So 10 is currently what
10 is
the
current-
budget is.
Correct.
And yet you're saying that 10 will be the budget going forward that we're going to do next
So I
year.
apologize. So 10 is the total budget, and then IT's budget is,
10 is IT's budget.
Correct.
IT has a separate budget.
and then what's procurement?
6.
I'm sorry.
But the 10 that you stated
Correct.
is covered by the 10 that we're already spending. So we're only going to spend another $2 million to cover 6 to 12 new positions, including a CIO.
I'm looking for that as the personnel for the 2 million, correct?
We'll get into that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell?
So I have one last thing on a stipend. So, Sam, were you interviewed by Sweet Assets when they did the Condrey study? No. Were you?
No,
Really? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other additional questions? Mr. Fagione?
Yes, Chairman, just one point, Alicia, and by the way, thank you for standing so steadfast, and I hope your recovery is quick.
thank you, me too.
Is it safe to say that technology, information technology has changed from 2015 till today?
Sure.
And in doing so, what we may have embarked upon in 2015 might have been a smart move then, but the world has changed differently today.
Correct.
Is this trend to have a CIO something just Orange County specific, or is this something in the region, across the state, across the country?
All over.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Cheney?
Yeah, do we need to make the amendments or offer the amendments that were taken in rules that were the final approved motion? Otherwise, we're gonna
I
have
have-
two different ones.
I haven't been told of any amendments, so
That happened in rules, so
Okay.
If you want to
I'll go ahead.
You
I'll
can,
go ahead and do that.
mention them. Sure.
Yep. So in section 1, purpose, the second paragraph, the last line, add the words both branches. You've got it, okay.
All
Yep.
these highlighted?
Yep. So, and then, but I
Mine
believe,
isn't highlighted.
so then 1402, number 2, add for Orange County Legislature, but I believe also we need to add other. That was something that was added, it just isn't highlighted. And then in 1402, subparagraph 4, by Orange County Legislature, and then after the word all, other is added. And then in Article 24, Section 1402, again, subparagraph 2, add for Orange County Legislature and also the word other between all and units. Subparagraph 4, add by Orange County Legislature and also add other between the word all and units. And that should do it. So the motion to amend.
Okay. Actually, does everybody else have one that already has the yellow?
I got the same kind you got, with no amendments, but I was on rules, so I know they could.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I got the amended.
Okay.
It says amended on there.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
So it looks like on your agenda was now the amended one.
Right.
So it's already on there.
So it's on there, but thank you, Mr. Cheney, for pointing it out as to,
It has to be, a motion has to be made to accept those amendments, and then you can vote on the amendment.
Okay.
Because the one that is currently on your agenda
okay.
is the
I'll
one that
make a
was
motion
originally.
to vote on the amended.
Motion, Mr. Cheney, second, Mr. O'Donnell. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, any last second questions? If not, all in favor as amended? Aye. Opposed? Opposed.
Thank you.
Carried. Thank you, Mike Gang.
Thank you.
I understand your concerns. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
While you're here, Alicia,
Yes.
let's move to,
Deb's gonna help me on Valley View.
Oh, she's gonna help?
Yeah, she was gonna take.
okay, as long as you don't have to stay around.
Yep.
Okay, then
Thank
that's
you,
fine.
I appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, next. Matt, welcome. Okay, number 2 is a request the release of the county's interest in and to certain deed sale parcels to the previous owners of record. A final list will be submitted at the legislative session. Motion in a second, please. Pressure. Matt,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, local law 2 of 2010 allows the county to accept payments by people who lost their property due to tax delinquency, to make the payments before an auction. For people who come in payments in 60 days, so we would ask that this law be applied. So we could apply to the court for vacature. We're also asking for permission to add extra parcels. Attorney Mitchell Mayer called recently and said he had a client who was willing to pay. I don't know that that's happened, but if they can get it in the next 2 days, it would obviously be a kindness to attach that parcel and not make them wait another.
okay, and I know this legislature always tries to do what we can for people like this. What is the actual deadline for people who may be listening, for them to come the morning before the meeting?
Usually it's the night before the auction usually, and we don't have an auction scheduled, so anybody who's in this situation, feel free to tender full payment and try to get this in next month.
Okay, all right. Questions, Mr.
You
Padu?
must have our approval, right? So if you have
Yes.
somebody you're talking about, you know the name and,
Yeah, we do need legislative approval under local law.
right, so we're getting to you for what's on our resolution, not for these other people.
Yeah, that's, well,
There's
we're asking for permission to add a parcel to the final resolution at the meeting.
Right. If somebody comes in
I know-
tomorrow, they can pay, they'll be added, and then we'll get that final list at the
It
meeting.
could be 10 people. Yeah, we just
Exactly.
approve it, whatever.
Whoever comes through, we want them to keep their property. That's the point.
Obviously, if there's an objection to the meeting, that can be raised then.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed, carried. Also, I've been remiss, I should have mentioned that Chairwoman Manelli is here. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, are you going to speak for Sorensen?
Oh, Stacy's here.
Oh, okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, A is a request to authorize the purchase of an unused 10-mile, 101-acre section of the former Erie Railroad right-of-way in Orange County from Open Space Institute. It is identified as the Scunnamunk Rail Trail and consists of the following tax parcels. In the town of Cornwall, 1-1-64.2, 1-1-64.1, 1-1-166.2, and 29-1-12. In the town of Blooming Grove, parcels 5-4-5.2, 5-4-8, 6-1-16, 9-1-17, 14-1-32, 18-1-4, 38-1-23, 43-1-18, and 52-1-1. In the town of Chester, it is one parcel, 3-1-3.1. And in the village of Washingtonville, it's 113-3-11.22, 114-1-14, 117-1-1, and 120-1-14. The purchase will reimburse through a Federal Transit Administration grant, FTA, New York State match, and a local match that will be provided by the county. The total purchase price is $2,362,500. The FTA grant will be in the amount of $1,890,000. New York State match will be $236,250, and the county match will likewise be $236,250. Motion in a second, please.
Second.
Heinz, Joe. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Stacy Butler. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Planning Department. This is Martha Ekman, one of our planners who work primarily on transit projects. This first resolution has been before Physical Services and Rules in the last 2 weeks now. The Scunnamunk Rail Trail has been in planning phases for a while. It's funded through FTA 5307 monies, and one of the sort of processes that's been taken a while to get here. We've gone through the NEPA process as well as appraisals for all the parcels. And our next step is to issue a design request for qualifications.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Other legislators? Hearing nothing? Nothing? Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory, despite being 1 inch thick.
Yes. Apologies.
All in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. B, this is a request to apply for, accept, and appropriate a Federal Transit Administration grant, the matching New York State grant, and the local match. These funds are apportioned to Orange County via the Federal 5307 funding program. The total FTA grant amount is $1,976,000. The New York State match is $247,000, and the local share is also $247,000. $221,000 of the local share will be provided by the municipalities and local operators of service, and $26,000 is required from the county as their portion. The total amount, $2,470,000. These funds will be used to purchase a dial-a-ride replacement vehicles for paratransit and demand response services, both of which are operated within the county. This project has been approved under the 2023 capital plan as proposed capital project number 122. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created. Motion in a second, please. Paduk, second.
Second.
Cheney.
This resolution was also before rules last week. Again, it's taking advantage of the federal 5307 funding. And it's to purchase dial-a-ride replacement vehicles for the paratransit and demand response programs.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Others? Boy, you guys are getting off easy. All in favor as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up. Hi, Deb. Thank you for filling in.
No problem.
Lawrence called and said, hey, Deb and I are going to be off on the same day. Like,
Donna, no, that's Donna.
or Donna, how is that possible? And it's like, it's like, surprise. Okay, so A is request supplemental appropriation for proposed capital project number 130 in the 2023 capital plan to replace the blast chiller freezer. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created. The amount is $47,000 to come from bonding. Motion in a second, please. Russia. Hines. Deb?
Okay, so the justification for this project is, they're looking to replace our current blast chiller. It has not been working for over 6 months, and it is an essential part of our operation. The blast chiller has been looked at by numerous contractors, and none of them have been able to fix the issues with the current piece of equipment. The blast chiller works to cool food down at a quick rate to limit the exposure to the danger zone. We use it for leftovers and foods that are needed to be prepared in advance.
Okay, and this was approved previously at Health and Mental Health. Okay, questions from committee members? All in favor as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Letter B is a request supplemental appropriation for proposed capital project number 129 in the 2023 capital plan to continue with residential unit refurbishments. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created in the amount of $40,000 to come from bonding. Motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
Fagione, I'll second. Deb?
Okay, and this is an annual project that they always have. It includes various improvements projects through facilities, signs, decor, TVs, handrails, doors, could be furniture, those types of things.
Questions from committee members? Others? Hearing none, all in favor as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you for sitting in.
No problem.
Next up, the college, Dr. Young and Paul. This is a request to cancel 2 approved library HVAC capital projects and replace them with an expanded consolidated project. The expanded project will also address HVAC issues in the Shepherd Center, currently scheduled in 2 phases over the next 2 years. These changes will lower the total cost of these 4 projects from $2.5 million, $2,595,000 to $553,982. The 4 projects are library cooling tower piping, $350,000 in 2023. Library chiller replacement, $420,000 in 2023. Shepherd Center air handler replacement phase 1, which was going to be $1.2 million in 2024, and Shepherd Center air handler replacement phase 2, $625,000 in 2025. The $1,553,982 consolidated project has been quoted by and will be managed by the New York Power Authority for a spring 2024 estimated completion. New York State will pay 50%, and a supplemental appropriation is requested. Motion in a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Janie Fagion. Doctor.
Great, thank you, Chairman. Not surprisingly, I'm not going to explain this. I'm going to pass this along to my colleagues. But thank you for having us here today, and I believe you all received notice of this. We had our first day of the academic year yesterday, and you saw there are 11.5% more FTE students moving around in those buildings. So thank you for your support last month. Things are going very well at the college. Thank you.
Okay, well, to this project, this is kind of an odd one. But in the end, we save $1 million collectively for the college and the county. So I think it's something that we should do. But just to give you a little bit of history here, we have, as you know, a number of buildings at both campuses of the college. All of them have HVAC equipment. Much of that equipment is fairly old. The college has been on a plan over the last number of years with replacing some of these units each year. And through the capital process that you're all familiar with, where the county picks up half the tab, but the state picks up the other half. So it's not that we haven't been aware that we needed to do these things. It's just it takes time in the budgeting process, as you know. A couple of things happened this summer that made things more interesting. Number one, we had a full energy audit done of both campuses during the last academic year. And there were some recommendations made about HVAC equipment, particularly in the library, that we might want to think about as we went forward. And coincidentally, the units that were under discussion in the library started to fail fairly dramatically. We were able to put them back together again with sort of chewing gum and rubber bands, but they continued to fail. And then finally, the entire library was without air conditioning for a number of weeks. That's a problem in the summer, but it's a disaster in the fall when we actually have the full student body back. At the same time, the Shepherd building had difficulties with one of their air handlers, and it was failing intermittently. We could get it back sometimes, we couldn't get it back sometimes. So we had to spend a fair amount of money on 2 short-term projects to get us through this cooling season, so through the middle of October or so. For the library, we needed to bring in a portable chiller unit, which is a nice service that's provided. They come in, they bring it, it sits on a trailer outside your building, they hook everything up, everything runs great, but it's expensive to cover us for a few months to the tune of $90,000. And in the Shepherd Center, 2 of the levels were air conditioned, but the 3rd level was where most of the student services activity takes place and where most of the new students and their families are visiting. And that was without air conditioning for much of the month of August. So we had to spend a fair amount of dollars, around $15,000 if I remember correctly, to bring in portable AC units and get them mounted properly in all of the exterior wall offices to at least take the edge off. The offices were fine, and they also cooled some of the interior area. So that gets us through this cooling season, but then we were presented with the issue of what to do about the permanent replacements. But the folks who helped us with the energy audit suggested that we deal with the New York Power Authority on this issue. So many of you know Corey Dawkins, our Director of Facilities, was here with me, and Corey initiated those discussions. And NYPA came back with a project to do essentially 4 projects all at once, as opposed to doing it in 3 phases over 3 years. So the way we had originally structured it, we had $770,000 worth of projects that were ready to go now. And then that took care of the library cooling tower piping and the library chiller replacement. And then in the following year, we would do phase 1 of the air handler replacements into the Shepherd Center to the tune of $1.2 million. That was for 2 of the handlers. And then the 3rd phase would be the year after that the third air handler in Shepherd for another $625,000. So you add all of that up and you get a total over the 3 phases of the project of $2,595,000. What NIPA came through with was a proposal to do all of it at the cost of $1.553 million, and do the project over the spring, over the winter, excuse me, so that it would be ready for the new cooling season in the spring. So, one obvious question is, how are we able to save that money, that much money? And there's really 3 contributors. One is in the project that NIPA recommended for the library. This is where they recommended different technology that did not require a cooling tower. So the $350,000 that was in the budget for cooling tower is not needed. And then particularly with the project in Shepherd with the 3 air handlers, there's economies of scale to purchasing them and installing them all at once as opposed to doing it over phases. And then the third piece is, since we're doing it all now, we don't have to build in the escalator costs into the cost of the projects that we would be doing over the 3-phase system. So as I said, the total cost for the 3 is $1,553,982. So over the cost of the 3 years, we're saving $1,041,018. So that's a sizable savings. However, that does require us, we only have 770 in the approved capital plan now. So that means we need to come up with the remaining 783,982. I was
Can you
not
get that
sure
number
how.
again?
$783,982. And since this was a new one for me, I enlisted the help of the finance folks here at the county, and we met a couple of times along with the deputy county exec to talk about this, and it was felt that the best way to approach it was the way we put it in this resolution, which is essentially to cancel the $770,000 projects that were already approved and replace them with the new request for $1,553,982. So a long, complicated explanation, but the net result, I think, is a very positive thing. And would be happy to answer any questions you have, and the more technical you get, the more I will rely on Corey to do that answering.
So the difference is $783,982?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this question, I thought Mr. Menudo was gonna ask at E&E, but so this 783,982 gets added to your floor for college funding, correct? To the current budget?
No, this is a capital project, sir, so it does not go through the operating fund at all.
Okay. All right. Okay, questions from legislative committee members? Mr. Cheney?
Yeah, we went through this at E&E, and I think that it would be helpful to also discuss this here. So talk a little bit about the role of the New York Power Authority and the numbers that we're looking at today versus as they move forward with their efforts, how those numbers might change.
Corey, I'll turn that to you.
Okay, so the estimate that we got takes us to 30% design. At 30% design, they'll have a better estimate of what the total cost would be. The estimate is not going to be more than about 10% either way. So they're pretty confident based on the information they gleaned from the energy audit. With the energy audit, they went through 12 months worth of our energy usage, so they really know what the building in terms of usages, what the campus usage is. They recommended an electric air-cooled chiller, which would tie into the electric savings that they estimate. So they're based on all their research, they really feel confident that this number is accurate and pretty much spot on.
And then at 30% design, when they come back with their new number, that's a fixed number that they will guarantee, and then they will be subcontracting the work to others.
Correct. Right, and 30% there, once we sign the authorization to proceed right now, they're gonna start to search for the equipment to try to lock in the price. So when they get to the 30%, the numbers are accurate.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. So, so the Power Authority is brought in to make sure that this and all these projects combined coincide with the climate leadership program,
Not sure how it's gonna tie into that, but
but they're doing these programs in this such a way so that they can conform to the climate leadership.
they're gonna search for any programs that would be applicable to the equipment that they buy. So one of the leverages that they do, leverage of scale, is they try to incorporate, based on any information they receive or have available to them about savings, they try to put that into the project and make it a portion of it. It's possible at 30% design, they can come back and say, hey, we found a project that's, sponsored by the state that is applicable to this, and it'll have additional savings. So this is actually the first project we're working with NIPA on, so I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I'm hopeful that based on all the good talk that I've heard over the last year or so, that we will see some savings based on what they're able to determine.
Mr. Padu?
Yeah, I asked this at Physical Services in regards to, I remember you telling me, Corey, that the air handlers that they're looking to replace are in a place you really can't get to. I did mention something about in their design, would they design maybe putting them on a roof and dropping them into the existing system rather than tearing your ceiling back? They're in the ceiling, you said, right?
Well, they're like in a storage area on the different ones.
And they're really hard to get to.
What I did was after our discussion before, I talked to NIPA and they mentioned that there's some concern with maybe not putting them back exactly where they are. So they're gonna make that a part of this design. They're gonna look at the feasibility of moving them perhaps on the roof or somewhere else. So, this is gonna be 30%, we'll have a better idea. I think there was also a mention about heat pumps as well. So I also asked them to see if they can incorporate a heat pump design versus the boilers that we use. So they're gonna work on it, maybe an additional add-on, perhaps, if those two functions, could be.
Maybe some units can do both, so why not?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Padu. Questions? Any other questions from legislators? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Thank you. All right, next up, Acting Commissioner Travis and Deanna. Number 6, this is request supplemental appropriation to the capital project budget in the amount of $740,000 for the Town of Warwick Bike Route and Pedestrian Trail Project. This project is for the development and construction of a bike and pedestrian trail over the adjoining lands of the town and county. The county will reimburse the town up to a maximum of $740,000 towards the total cost of construction of the project. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Janie, Joan. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to your first Ways and Means Committee meeting.
Not the first one, but the first one.
Well, first one is your new position.
Thank you. As I mentioned in Physical Services, this is a project that I've heard discussed at the Orange County Transportation Council meetings, but I'm not extremely familiar with it. And I think Deanna has a bit more details that she can share.
So this is going to be a trail that will connect a portion of county property at the Warwick County Park to property owned by the town of Warwick. The town property will abut a town road, which then leads to the town of Warwick Park, Cascade Park. In Cascade Park, there is a connection to the Appalachian Trail at that location. This is going to be a rustic trail. I believe it's going to be about 3 feet wide. It's going to cross the Longhouse Creek. At the Longhouse Creek, there's going to be the creation or construction of a timber string bridge. And the funding is $521,000 federal share, $370,000 from the Orange County Transportation Council, and up to a maximum of $740,000 from the county.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cheney, Ed?
It's fine.
Okay, because I know it's in your area. Can you send us a nice map of this?
It was in your packet that you received with the history.
Probably the last page.
No. No, it's okay. I'll get one.
Okay,
Thanks.
they have it at legislature from yesterday.
One copy.
That's okay. Question, Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah, I got a couple of them, so.
Sure, go ahead.
I was just same as you, looking for the map to see where, and this is part, did we vote a couple of months ago on the Appalachian Trail piece, or is that separate?
No, this was last, I guess, December, I believe, when we went and approved the capital project budget. This was in addition to that capital project budget.
Right, but a couple of months ago, we talked about the Appalachian Trail piece, right?
That was, I think, in another
Is that a different?
municipality.
Is that
I
a
think that was
different
in
thing than
Minnesota.
this?
Yes, yeah.
That's different than that trail cut we talked about on the Appalachian Trail. That was a ton of money too.
I had a recollection that
That
was
was a
for
different one?
property
Yeah,
that
I
was
just wanted,
in Minnesota.
right, because I knew we talked about the Appalachian Trail and doing a, basically cut through the path that connected, I think, into Tuxedo over the mountain. I think that was it. So this has nothing to do with that. Right? So, you did rattle off some numbers there on the federal share, the county share, the council. Where's the town? What's their share?
It's about $500 and some thousand.
Can we get that? Because I don't see it anywhere. So is that the same 500,000 you just mentioned?
Is that the 500 from the federal portion? Is that in addition?
So just to be clear, what you stated was,
521 federal,
right,
370 Orange County Transportation Council,
right,
and 740,
40 from us,
correct.
right. So I'm just looking.
The
for
town was
where
within
the
that
town-
500,000.
For the federal.
For the federal. That's money that's been expended so far, and it's part federal because it's part of the
All right, so
money that was up.
can you just get us exactly how much the town is paying for this?
Yep.
We seem to be paying a lot, and the exact breakout of how much is our property? And what kind of work is done on our property? And exactly what kind of work is being done on their property? It seems like a lot of money for a 3-foot wide trail. Okay, so, if you get us those answers, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And how long the entire section is gonna be.
I believe it's going to be about 1 3/4 miles.
Okay. And you say the work has already begun on this?
Design work. No, construction, just
No
design.
construction work. All right. And then liability wise,
There will be an intermunicipal agreement after the construction is done.
That's relative to responsibility of the two parties for maintaining the trail. There's a memorandum of understanding between the county and the town. It's been signed now by both parties to proceed with the project.
so can you just tell us the county pieces of property we're talking about here?
It's a portion of the Warwick Town Park and Hickory Hill Golf Course towards the back.
The back of Hickory Hills Golf Course, so there's nothing cut there, so we have to create the 3 feet
Yes,
wide back there.
yes.
And the town park is already,
It's
Clear
town
cut.
property.
or the county park, I'm sorry. I'm just interested in the county.
Okay.
So Hickory Hills and where else?
Hickory Hill, and then the Warwick County Park is
Next to it.
right next to it, where the pavilion is in the back. And then the trail would head from the back
So
area.
we have to clear that also.
Correct. There is a path now, but I'm sure more needs to be done.
All right, can you just find out exactly how long that piece is? too?
Sure.
Please, appreciate it. Thank you.
Just send the answers to Jean so she can
Yep.
send them to the entire legislature, please. Right. Any other questions? All in favor as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Bob, come on up and join. Next is the request to confirm all tipping rate increases and decreases charged at Orange County-owned solid waste disposal facilities for all applicable waste streams and to supersede all prior resolutions setting previous rates. Motion in a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Cheney, second. I can't second because I'm abstaining like I did yesterday at physical. Mr. Fagione. Bob, you're up.
Okay, quite simply, this is driven by electronics. There's a new, relatively new law that if we collect a tipping fee for electronics, that the vendor who takes the electronics and disposes of them cannot access rebates from the manufacturers for that equipment. So then, in light of that, they are charging us a disposal fee. So this proposal is to reduce that cost to zero for the electronics. And in exchange, we will not be charged a tolling fee for that material. So that's what's driving this. Occasionally, when we change a tipping rate of any type, we have in a resolution, we have all the tipping rates for MSW, bag garbage, you name it, all in one resolution. So if someone is looking for a price for something, they can look in one place. So that's why we're changing, just updating that sheet. So that's why it supersedes the previous resolution. But again, it's being driven by the electronics.
Questions from Mr. Padu?
What's the comparison? I mean, what were we getting for the electronics compared to the whole?
We were getting,
It says $20 per unit for television.
yeah, $20 a unit for TVs, computer monitors, $10 for up to 14 inches and $15 for 14 inches.
I guess my question is really for a year, and we were doing that, what were we paying in tipping fees in regards to?
Depends on the volume.
Given away, because now we're not charging.
Correct, but we're not being charged
What's the difference, right? That's what I'm asking.
I'm gonna say it's approximately breaking even, but it's just a benefit to everyone. I think we'll be getting more TVs and more computers. But I can get to that exact number.
You mentioned not any hauling fee. Is there a disposal fee?
Hauling or disposal, they take it away and there's no charge.
No charge for anything, haul or disposal. Okay.
Anything that they're charged for, they pay. But they can access those funds from the manufacturers.
Yes.
Where applicable.
Mhm.
If we charge a tipping fee, that's erased.
Right. All right, questions? Any other questions from committee members?
Just a comparison to that, how about that? Tipping fee in regards to,
Yeah, that's what I think you asked me, and I can get that number for you. I don't have it on. Like how much we've collected versus how much we paid. That's what you're interested in, I think, right? Yeah.
And also in the state of New York, private waste companies are not able to get any of these fees from the state or the manufacturers. So it's only applicable to municipalities, governments, that the state allows reimbursements and grants. Okay. No other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next. Travis. Okay, so next is the request to accept and appropriate a grant from the, Come on up, Ed. Request to accept and appropriate a grant from the FAA for the Apron A rehabilitation and expansion. Upon approval, this will increase capital project number 560. This project has been approved under the 2023 capital plan as proposed. Capital project number 6. The total amount is $3,941,868. The federal share, $3,547,681. State share, $197,094. County share, $197,093. Funds to come from bonding. Motion in the second, please.
I'll make that.
Second. Joan Cheney. Ed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the committee. The airport for 2024, which is a 2023 application, is looking for pavement for the Apron A area next to the operations building. Pavement's old and is past its useful life, and it was identified with the FAA as a target of opportunity. One of the things that came out of our master plan update recently is pavements are largest priority at the airport, is replacing a lot of dated pavement because some of it is in the poor category. Well, this is one area. In addition, because of all the demand that the airport's had over the last 5+ years, the FAA granted an expansion of this area to accommodate more aircraft. So right now, the FAA is a little bit behind on administering grants, but I've been given a pretty good heads up that it's highly probable that we'll be getting funding sometime early September. And so this request is based off of the application that was submitted, and all the numbers in the application will be matched up in the grant when the grant is offered, hopefully.
Okay.
And could I just add?
Sure,
that,
of course.
I apologize for the late circulation of material, but we circulated a short form EAF that was just handed out. We initially thought this project was going to be a type 2 action under seeker. It was reviewed for the federal environmental review and was declared no impact. But after looking at it further, we realized that we do need to do seeker for this. It would I believe we could do it under an uncoordinated review. The EAF short form was filled out and there was no impacts identified through it. So if there was an opportunity to also add the intent to be lead agency, classify this as an unlisted action and a declaration of no impact. We need that for this project.
Okay. Make sure it's submitted if you need it. That's all.
Were you suggesting that it would be helpful if we did that today?
If we were able to add that to this request, we were not aware of it heading up to this, but in order to establish a capital, I believe.
Rick?
Yeah, if I could just add. So before the project can be funded, you need to complete seeker. They already completed NEPA, as they said, but they also need to complete seeker. In order to complete seeker, this board, or the legislative body rather, would go ahead and have to assume lead agency, identify it as a unlisted action, that it was a negative declaration based upon the assessment in the environmental assessment report, and therefore allow the funding to go on. That can all be done in one resolution. You do that routinely with other projects where you're about to fund something or to take something, and in one resolution you indicate how you've complied with seeker, and then in the same resolution you go ahead and take your action, in this case funding. So it would just be, this is for your information so that, and all the legislators' information, so that they can have an informed decision as to what the impacts could be by reading through the environmental assessment.
So is this something we need to do today as an amendment to the agenda, or?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say that would be the best form in order for that to happen. So that we would be asking for an amendment to the agenda item to include the fact that this legislature
would like to be lead agency.
Lead agency, type the action as unlisted.
Wait, hold on, let me type as unlisted action.
and make a determination of significance as a negative declaration.
Okay, so we need to make this amendment to declare ourselves lead agency, list this as a unlisted action, and make the determination of a negative declaration of significant impact. Okay, so I guess that's my verbiage for today, to ask for that amendment to include those items that I just described. Mr. O'Donnell,
I'll second.
seconded by Cheney.
So are we gonna adjourn for 10 minutes or 15 minutes so we can read this? Or are we just gonna vote on it without reading?
Do you have a question? Well, let's ask some questions.
I can.
I'm gonna ask questions if I didn't read it.
If I could just amplify that, obviously, it's a
understand.
federal
I
state
understand.
issue.
How about if we went through it item by item?
It's the same as reading it.
Yeah.
You wanna start paragraph 1? Go ahead.
Could I just clarify just one thing? Obviously, it's a federal state issue, seeker state, federal with NEPA. All the federal environmentals were done from 2008 through the master plan update, through the review of this project. So everything related on the federal side environmentally is complete. The issue is on the state side with seeker. The rehabilitation part of this is a type 2. It's the expansion that's creating the reason to do the unlisted action, because it's over, I guess, 4,000 square feet was the approximate number of pavement. So it's really a partial part of this project as a type 2. The other part is why we're doing this.
So that's exactly correct, as Ed said. So what you are reviewing in this statement is the environmental impact of, I think it's 26,000 square feet of additional pavement. That's all that you're being asked to review. And that's why when you look through this, it results in a determination of significance of no significant adverse environmental impact.
And that was 26,000 square feet, approximately?
It's in the EAF.
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
Yeah, it's, in the CADX, it's listed as a total project rehab is 112,000 square feet. And approximately, let's see, that's total project, 112,000 square feet. And then the breakdown, I think it's in that email.
It's 33,900 square feet.
I stand corrected.
No problem.
Description of the project mentions the existing apron will also be expanded by approximately 130,300 square feet.
Let me read that. Yeah, it's square yard, square feet, so it's confusing it.
The rehabilitation part is not something that has to go through secret at all. Although it's part of the project.
Right.
The environmental review, that's considered by the state as to automatically have no significant adverse environmental impact.
Right.
The rehabilitation, so only on the additional pavement.
But that's in the statement, in the short environmental assessment form, it says the existing apron will also be expanded by approximately 130,300 square feet.
That's the rehabilitation part.
And that's what we're considering. No, it says
That's the
expansion. It says expansion.
Expansion.
Apologize, got turned around on that one.
So what is the number incorrect? The 130, or is the unit of measure
It's a
incorrect?
unit of measure. The actual unit of measure is this. Apron A will be expanded from its current area of 10,721 square yards to 25,200 square yards. The construction will increase the space by 14,479 square yards. And that's right out of the application.
Can you give
And that's
a helpful approximation of what that would be in real life? Is that like the size of this building? Is it 10 times the size of this building?
Probably the size of the building's parking lot right in front of it.
Oh, a square yard is 9. So, I mean, 14,400 times 9 would be square feet.
140,000 square.
Yeah, that's the one,
Yeah.
130, 300.
Yeah, 133.
So the effective area is this building, the front of this building, parking to where it goes to the drainage there.
So I
So
guess-
can this be delayed, Rick? I mean, can this be put on as consent before, so we have to have a chance to study it rather than just literally?
Well, you just make a motion to amend to include
This
it.
is a question under discussion of my amendment.
We made a motion to.
I mean, I'm okay with, trusting Travis and the department for making sure all the boxes are checked correctly and it is pavement, but I understand what Mr. O'Donnell is saying. We're handed this.
And my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is for us to just go through it with the guidance of Ed and Travis, to just go through each one of the statements and suggest why it's yes or no, or not, yes or not applicable. Yeah, well, yes or no.
Okay, that's fine by me.
There's also a summary page that's generated by the EAF mapper. It's on the, I believe it's the 4th page. It says EAF mapper summary at the top.
Right.
And in that is identified 3 environmental considerations to look at further, which would be the wetlands, the endangered species for Indian and bat, and the upland sandpiper. And then on the very last page, which is the part 3 of the EAF, the responses to those environmental concerns that should be looked at a little bit further are addressed. So for the wetlands, they're looking at the site because there's wetlands on the site, the overall airport site, but within the project area, there's no adjacent or wetlands that would be potentially disturbed or impacted. In regards to the long-eared bat, there's no trees in the vicinity of the project, but even if there were, it would be addressed by adhering to the windows of activity that's allowed for those bats. And then the upland sandpiper, again, any habitat there'd be potential for that species is well outside of the project area. It's over on the, I guess you'd call it like the southern side of 826, where you'd have longer grass, where they could establish, but I believe right around where this expansion area, the grass is kept 6 inches.
Yeah, 6 inches.
Yeah, so
6 to 12.
And that was all looked at as endangered species wise in that federal environmental reporting and determined to no impact to those species.
Okay, so do we go move to page 2? Start going through yeses and nos. Mr. O'Donnell.
I'm still on the second paragraph, okay?
Okay, question, go ahead.
So it says you may also provide any additional information which you believe will be needed by or useful for the lead agency. Attach additional pages as necessary to supplement any of them. Is that what you just read?
Well, I have no problem submitting the category exclusion, the federal category exclusion, which was the entire environmental assessment. That was
I'm just asking what this requires.
What I read was the part 3, which was.
Well, let's go to paragraph 2 here.
Is there any reason to add anything?
I didn't believe so. I believe that any of the environmental concerns that were brought up were.
That's my question. Did you attach
We
any
didn't.
additional pages as necessary to supplement this?
We attached.
The following is you're coming in at the last minute, okay, and we don't have any information. And Barry has a good idea to go through it point by point. It's gonna take a while, all right?
Yeah, that's fine. The reason why this is being presented as an application is because the FAA's basically told me that once the grant is issued, it has to be turned around in 7 days, and their fiscal year ends on the 30th. So I did not want to jeopardize potential of $4 million in grant money by leaving something out there that would not allow us to accept the grant. The issue of the EAF came up after further discussions over the last week because the original reading was type 2. It was the amount of expansion area that basically triggered the re-review of this and the decision to go with an EAF. Okay, so none of this was sitting there, just waiting to be considered. Everything was being considered up until just before we had this meeting. And I actually had conversations with committee members as well because of the time frame required here. Because if we cannot give approval to the county executive and this grant is not returned by the middle of September, we will lose the money.
Okay, so
In response to Legislator O'Donnell's question, there is no other needed information.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got the project information description, we got the area, so we go down now to question 1.
No, I'm not. I'm still, they gave us about 4 or 5 different numbers on the brief description. From 96,400 a year, then you went to 130,300, then somebody threw out 140,000, then you started, instead of using feet, you started using yards. So is this brief description that's on this piece of paper that you handed to us accurate? Is the existing apron A area approximately 96,400 square feet that's going to be rehabilitated?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a simple answer, right? Rick?
96,489.
Just, yes.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay,
The existing apron will also be expanded by approximately 130,300 square feet. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
Because you threw out these other numbers.
Because the application is different from the EAF.
You want to explain that?
The application deals with the entire project. The EAF is just dealing with the expansion part. It's referencing the
I
rehabilitation.
think that's where we get down to number 3 then, with the 5 acres and 340 acres. I didn't get that part yet.
That's something
Different?
different.
Okay.
I can explain that as well if you want, but.
I'll get there, Rick. I'll get there.
So with respect to the brief description of the project, that is correct. You have a rehabilitation of an existing runway. That is the 96,400 square feet. That will be rehabilitated. That has no environmental impact, according to the state. Then the apron is going to be expanded by 130,300 square feet.
Right.
That's what this environmental assessment form is meant to address, that expansion. The impact of that expansion.
All right, so there's going to be no environmental problems with the last sentence here.
Right.
The expansion area includes areas that have been previously disturbed and includes existing concrete pavements and an abandoned septic system. So
Correct.
we have no problem with that environmentally?
What's happening? Take it out?
Yes, it'll be removed and prepped with base and then pavement on top. The existing septic field is residual from the sewer project that is 80% and almost complete.
It hasn't been done yet.
The sewer project's 80% complete. All the piping is put in.
But
and-
this removal of the abandoned septic.
No, well, no,
system-
none of this project's, we don't have the funding yet. So none of that's happened yet.
All right, so how do you know it's not going to be an environmental problem?
The whole area was already reviewed federally. And that also was an area it was a target area with the FAA as far as hangar construction. So in the master plan updates, they pick 5 target projects and they environmentally review them. And this area is where the construction of hangars is potentially going to be sited in the future with other projects. So this whole area has been environmentally reviewed under the federal guidelines.
Okay.
But in addition to the federal guidelines, the way that the state requires you to look at this and whether or not there is any environmental impacts resulting from it is going through the the questions that are listed below, the 1 through 20 questions. That is where the state, and you've all seen many, many environmental assessment forms, whenever you are assuming lead agency and making secret determinations with many, many projects that you've done over the years. This is the exact same form that's used. And the way that you determine whether or not there is a conclusion of no significant adverse environmental impact is by going through this question, which is the state form, as to how to assess whether or not that's true. And that's what all these 20 questions relate to.
All right, so number one,
Number one,
why is that no?
Because it doesn't only involve legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, regulations, actually construction.
So what does it involve?
Construction.
That's the answer, okay. Two is self-explanatory, right? It requires a permit.
next is the acreages.
And just on that, Legislator O'Donnell, is that the FAA has already approved this project.
Yeah.
And they had to first complete their own environmental review, which was no environmental impact. But they have already approved this, so that approval doesn't need to be done prior to the conclusion of this season, because it's already been done.
All right, three,
Is the 5.2 acres the entirety of the rehabilitation and expansion, or just the expansion?
It's both.
so we're gonna physically disturb all 5.2 acres?
About 2.3 are already disturbed and another probably 0.4 has concrete and a leach field in it, and all that will be removed. And then the remaining material, the remaining area is essentially grassland.
So that won't be disturbed.
Well, the area, if you look on the diagram that's on, I think page 4.
I'm just going by the.
The majority, a good portion of the area is already pavement or concrete, and that's gonna be milled or replaced, and some of the other areas of the grass will be boxed out and paved. So 5.2 acres is the amount of total area that's gonna be disturbed, whether it's milling it.
No, it's not. There are, included within the 5.2 is an existing apron.
Yep.
That's going to be rehabilitated.
Rehabilitated.
Right, that's not touching anything that's been untouched before. Then there's an area that has been touched before, disturbed before, that includes some concrete, includes the abandoned septic system. And then there are some undisturbed, yet undisturbed grasslands that, from the numbers that were completed, it sounded like it's less than 2 acres.
If you recall many years ago, Stat Flight, that's where Stat Flight was located, the concrete pad. That's where they were operating out before they left.
Okay, 4 just identifies the action as the airport. So it's not applicable to any zoning regulations?
That's just the county.
Because it's the county?
Because it's the county. I
County
would think.
exempt from zoning regulations.
With the county. That's
Yes.
why. Consistent with the comprehensive plan that you have out there?
Right.
6, self-explanatory.
No critical environmental area in that neck of the woods, I don't think.
No, that has to be designated and registered with the state of New York DEC, and there is, the town of Montgomery has no critical environmental area that encompasses that area.
Okay, so if you said no to 8A, you don't have to answer 8B or C?
They should all be no's.
Yes, thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. They should all be no's. Does the proposed action meet or exceed state energy code requirements?
It's not applicable.
Yeah, it should be kind of like NA.
It says.
We got NA in there.
Oh, over there, okay. Will the proposed action connect to an existing public-private water supply?
NA.
NA. Will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities?
And that should, it says NA, because again, there's no wastewater being generated.
Does the project site contain or is substantially contiguous to a building, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National State Historic Register, or has been determined by the Commissioner of Parks, Recreation, and Historic to be eligible for listing the state historic places?
And this is a box that's automatically checked by the DEC. As Travis was discussing later on, this is an electronic form when you fill it out online. And when, as soon as you put in the location, the DEC itself, out of their database, checks off some of the boxes. This is one of the boxes that it checks off itself.
And the same for B.
That's correct.
Okay. Does any portion of the site of the proposed action lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by state, federal, or local? And the answer is yes.
Right, that's another box that's checked by the DEC automatically. Travis has explained the yes to you.
Yep.
Saying that it's off-site of where this proposed project area of the airport is.
And B, it's a statement that this paving is well away from any water body or wetland. 14.
Now, I'm sorry, on 13, it says that, yes, they want a description there. I don't see a description in there.
He verbally gave you description.
I know, but
We
should
can
it,
put it in the,
should it not be in the application?
if you want it in the application.
We can add that if you'd like.
We don't
It's
like
not
it, but
I mean, should it says if yes, give a description. So I'm just saying, should there be one for this?
Part 3. Well, there's no to be.
Yeah, we interpreted that because it was noted B, that we didn't put anything in there, but if you like the water bodies that are on the overall, and the wetlands on the overall site, you can.
Okay, all right, okay.
All right, and then, again, no encroachment because it's not even close to any of the water bodies. 14, identify the typical habitat types that occur or are likely to be found on a project site. Check all that apply. And again, grassland, urban. Should we have checked wetland also since they are on site?
Again, the way we interpreted this was that when they look at the map or.
Sounds on the project site.
Yeah.
That's what's.
Part of the project site. Okay, so in this project site area of the parking area, there is no wetland. Okay, I can see that. Does the site of the proposed action contain any species or animal or associated habitats listed by the state and federal government or threatened or endangered? And that's where we had to check the box, yes, for this general having involvement with the bats and sandpipers.
That's another box that was checked by the DEC already.
Okay. Is the project site located in the 100-year floodplain? Here's a question that, no, you're next to a river.
So this again refers to the project site and not the, and not the overall airport parent parcel. If it was the overall parcel, it would definitely be yes.
Okay. Everybody satisfied with that
So
answer?
part of the parcel is in the flood?
This part is
Part of
outside.
the airport is not?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, obviously something of a higher elevation wouldn't be in the floodplain. Will the proposed action create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources? If yes, will the stormwater discharges flow to adjacent properties? So the first answer was yes, and the second answer was no, because it'll be contained on site. It's good.
We have an intricate set of stormwater controls on the airport, so all this will go into that system that was built in several different projects over the years.
Okay, and their answer that you just gave is the answer to B, why it's
correct.
checked yes, and that is the answer.
Yes, and we can put that in there.
Okay.
That it's accounted for in a stormwater drainage facility plan to the project.
So what's the answer to B? You have no?
B,
No,
B was yes.
Is yes.
17B?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the discharges will be in other conveyance systems to make sure that it doesn't run off the property. And,
Which says yes.
Whenever you have additional impervious service, you will always have additional stormwater
Yep.
discharge to deal with.
but obviously, increasing your asphalt coverage will increase water
All right,
to some extent.
you got me confused here.
Okay?
All right, so first thing on 17 is, will the proposed action create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources?
That was yes.
Yes.
You check yes. A, will stormwater discharges flow to adjacent properties?
That's
No.
check no.
B, will stormwater discharges be directed to established conveyance systems of storm damage? Is that yes?
Yes.
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 Well, mine says no. Oh.
You
You're
said
right.
no.
All right. Go briefly describe.
That's what he just did with the mitigation
Put it in there?
We'll add that in.
Yes, we'll have it.
All right.
to be added.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, no problem at all. Does the proposed action include construction or other activities that would result in impoundment of water or other liquids, retention ponds, waste lagoons, dams? If yes, explain. And the answer is no. Everybody satisfied with that? Has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? And the answer is not that I know of. No, correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been the subject of remediation, ongoing or completed for hazardous waste? And the answer is no. Okay. The next page is where the summary that Travis mentioned, and this is where it answers or asks some questions to be addressed separately. And that's where you can see that talking about wetlands and digital mapping, as well as then threatened or endangered species potential, I always say, with the Indiana bat or upland sandpiper. And that was what was also described on the last page, the back cover on part 3, the determination of significance. Those are basically the same answers, but just with different verbiage.
Well, this is the page that references where DEC's automatic fill-in boxes happen. So they tell you, this is the EAF mapper summary report, which is automatically done by the DEC whenever you go online and put in the property listing at the very beginning. So they answer, these are the ones that I talked about, answered for us in the form, and then here they list them again, and then give you any information that they have about it. For instance, on the 100-year floodplain, second from the bottom, it's the DEC that says that there is none. And same thing with question 20, the DEC says there is no remediation because they have a database with respect to all the remediation areas throughout the state. Same with the threatened or endangered species. Those are listed because they have general areas where Indiana bat, virtually all of Orange County, and also the upland sandpiper based upon the types of land area that's involved.
Yeah.
All right. So this is simply a printout that the DEC gives. We can adjust this. When you print out the form, it answered some things for you and prints this out with it. And so you're supposed to keep it with the form. And then the next part is the impact assessment based upon the information that you have just gleaned from the prior 20 questions. And what Travis has done is that based upon the answer to those 20 questions, there is either no or simply a small impact that may have occurred. In other words, it's not a moderate to large. Even if you have moderate impacts, you're still permitted to go ahead, and it's usual to have still a negative declaration. It's only if there is significant large impacts that you usually get involved with, whether or not any additional environmental review would be required. So in the filling out of this, and this was not automatically filled out, this was filled out by Travis, anticipating for you what your conclusions would be based upon the prior 20 questions, that all of these 11 potential impacts would be either no or small impacts. So if you want to go through those, you can go through those.
Might as well. So we'll just basically, I'll read them all, and if people have questions, we'll answer them. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? And that really doesn't apply to us, I believe.
Correct.
Would the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity or use of land? And I don't think small. Just we're expanding pavement, which again has some water impacts, but small water impacts. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? I wouldn't believe so. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? Well, there is no critical environmental area, so that would be no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or a walkway? Wouldn't believe so. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Again, we're laying pavement and digging up and closing a septic field. I wouldn't think so. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment facilities? Again, it's not connected to either. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Not deemed to. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? Again, well away from wetlands and water bodies, not digging into or affecting groundwater and or flora or fauna. Those are on the outside of the boundaries.
There's some grasslands that will be affected, but that's clearly small.
Minimal grassland. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? And I believe when they put down the pavement, the plan is to be engineered so that there is none of that.
Correct.
Or small. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? And that would be unknown.
And then the part 3 form is basically considering the information provided in part 1 and the answers to the question in part 2 that you just went over. Are there any significant adverse environmental impacts? Travis talked about how here he talked about some of the federal wetlands, the upland sandpiper, et cetera, that's been discussed previously. So based upon that, if your determination is that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts, that's what's checked here, and that then would result in a negative declaration.
Okay. So are there any questions to my motion and Mr. Cheney's second to the amendment of us determining ourselves to be lead agency, listing the unlisted action and a negative declaration? Is there any further discussion on that amendment? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried? Okay. Any more discussion on the main motion? Rick?
No, I was just going to say that, as you have requested, Travis and Ed will go ahead and revise this short form environmental assessment form and give it to Gene, who will give it to each of the legislators, so they will have it for the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for your clarification. All right. All in favor of the main motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for reviewing all of it. Thank you.
All right. Travis, on your own. A, request supplemental appropriation to the capital project budget for preliminary engineering and design of bridge rail upgrades on various county-owned bridges. This project has been approved under the 2023 capital plans, proposed project number 31. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created in the amount of $75,000 to come from bonding. Motion and second, please.
So moved.
Jane, Fagion, Travis.
Thank you. This would be established a capital for design of bridge railing upgrades and improvements. These would be for bridges that have not reached a point in their lifespan where they're on our capital plan for replacement or rehabilitation. However, they have railing that's older style railing that has blunt ends, and this would be to evaluate them and design a new railing that would meet current standards, most likely including transition rail and a box beam rail extending along the bridges.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Hearing none, all in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried. B, request supplemental appropriation to the capital projects budget for preliminary engineering and design of the Crystal Run Bridge number 2, replacement bin number 3345120 in the town of Walk Hill. This project has been approved under the 2023 capital plan as proposed project number 33. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created in the amount of $100,000 to come from bonding. Motion in a second, please. Mr. Paduk.
Second.
Second, Mr. Cheney. Travis.
This would be to establish the capital project for design of the Crystal Run Bridge number 2, which is in the town of Walk Hill. It's on the town-owned Stony Ford Road, and it is over a tributary that goes to the Walk Hill River. Bridge was built in 1956 and has approximately 3,700 daily trips over it. Bridge is currently posted as 11-ton weight restriction, which was posted that way to address previous yellow flags that were received. Some of the issues that are currently with the bridge are the ends of the beams are significantly deteriorated, which is a good portion of the condition that they attributed to the posting of the bridge. The abutments are also in fairly poor shape, and it's a relatively narrow bridge.
You can have a good center, but if you got bad ends, it ain't gonna hold up. Questions from committee members? Hearing none, all in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried. C is a request supplemental appropriation to the capital project budget for work at the Camp LaGuardia property to improve, preserve, and secure the property, including raising certain buildings, disposal of them, environmental monitoring, environmental reporting, and costs related to securing other buildings and the perimeter, including vegetation and rubbish removal, fencing, and security monitoring. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created. These activities constitute a type 2 action under seeker, requiring no further environmental review. This total amount is estimated to be $1,492,800. Motion in a second, please.
I'll make that motion.
Fagion, I'll second. Travis.
Thank you. This capital would be established, the request is to establish this capital to allow us to enact a plan to better secure the Camp LaGuardia site. It would also help prepare the site for whatever its future use is. As I'm sure you're aware, there's been significant vandalism and trespass in the buildings and on the site over the years. The intent is to better secure and improve safety of the site. The work under this capital that we're proposing we would be able to begin that work almost immediately. We would utilize in-house workforce and existing contracts that we have to address basically the safety concerns that are on the site that would be taken care of as part of this capital. This work, I guess the first step would be to clear around all the existing buildings that are on the site to allow better access to perform this work. Then our intent is to have abatement contractor come in and perform abatement on 6 of the buildings. And then Orange County DPW staff would demolish and dispose of 5 of those buildings. A couple of the buildings we're going to demolish and dispose don't require any abatement, so we'll take care of that. And then we would be securing 3 of the buildings that were abated for potential future use. And then the next step under this capital would be, we would intend to have our on-contract abatement contractor come in. And because there's a handful of buildings that structurally are not safe to enter to try to abate or address, we'd have this contractor handle the demolition and abatement and the monitoring and the disposal of each of those buildings. And then finally, we would intend to, that would leave us with basically 4 buildings that are up on the hill, the larger buildings. And we would secure those buildings with fencing and securing the windows and doors to be addressed in future capital projects. There's proposed capital money in the 2024 and 2025 capital plan right now. And I believe all the work that we've outlined in this would put the Camp LaGuardia site, we would address a lot of the safety concerns, and it would consolidate the buildings that would still remain that would be securing into a much smaller area, which would allow for improved security of the site.
Okay. And again, one thing that Travis did mention, it's New York State labor law that if a building and structure is unable to be unsafe to enter, to even look to be abated, it has to be then demolished because there's a chance of asbestos being in it because it was built previous to 1972 or something like that. Even if there's a chance, you can't go in and say yes, you can't go in and say no. You have to take the whole thing down as asbestos and handle it as asbestos and dispose of it properly, as well as also the procedure for demolition with the guidelines for, safety protocols, misting and personal safety gear.
Good air monitoring, yeah.
All right, Mr. Fangio.
Chairman, thank you. Just if this is approved today, just can you keep us updated on the work projects going on now?
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Any questions? Mr. O'Donnell.
So you mentioned the top 4 buildings on the top of the hill? Right? They fenced now?
No, the whole site's fenced, but not, those are not individually fenced, no.
No, but that's the plan.
Yes.
Is there anything that prevents us from doing that now?
Fencing, funding.
Really, we got $230 million surplus.
Well, just approved.
Approved funding. Yeah, no, and that's why we're here. That's why we're here, because we could immediately tackle those items.
So if we approve this, then you going forward with the fencing right away? Perfect.
After we clear around the building, so we can get the fencing in place, and we button up the openings.
And as well as plywooding doors and that sort of stuff. All right, any other questions? All in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Let the record show that Mr. Gretchen is no longer here. Next up, Harry. The floor is yours.
Sure. So Terry Ann is handing out, actually, I just received this morning out off the press. It's a county sales report that was done by NASDAQ. So it's approximately 50 pages. It's great information. It has comparables for Orange County from last year at 22 to 23 at the same time period. What I found fascinating in the report, just a quick, on page 37 is Orange County's numbers. And our clothing stores are #1 as opposed to most counties that are automobile dealer sales. And we can kind of attest to that.
We know where that comes
Yeah,
from.
exactly,
Yeah.
without disclosing individual vendors. So if you don't mind, I'll go back to my regular report that we do every month with the graphs.
No, just looking at Orange County for a second, we're
Sure.
seeing automobile dealers are down.
Yes. And so part of that had to be with inventory. I was speaking with, my local sales tax rep, and
Uh-huh.
a lot has to do with inventory in this area.
Okay, and the other thing, administration of economic programs, so government is down 86 million? In the state of New York, that's pretty damn good to have government go down.
Exactly.
Okay, now you can continue.
Okay, great. So I'll go back to the regular report that I share with you. We are through August, we received all payments in August. And currently for the month of August, we were down 0.37%. Year to date, we are still up 0.49%. And as opposed to last year at this time, we are still above budget at 4.94%. So, kudos to Deb for doing a great job of the budget to actual is where we're standing. But, if you look at back some of this report that I provided you today, some of the things that other counties are seeing, and my concern is as well, and I've spoken about this before, a lot of the one-time payments from stimulus checks, they're gone. Another thing, a huge hit that families will entail is in October. For the past 3 years, there's a better word for it. But basically, your student loan accounts were frozen. You didn't have to make payments on those. Those are coming back into play in October, which in my personal opinion will then affect your consumer spending, could then kind of fluctuate how much we're going to see in spendable sales tax money, not your everyday items that you need when you go to the grocery store buying cars, but your disposable income. But on a positive note, Orange County tourism is still strong that we can see. But like I said, my concern and, for Deb and her team going forward, it's a big undertaking with the 24 budget to project where we'll be with sales tax. And, I am not a doctor by any means, but another concern is that we are starting to see some COVID numbers increase significantly. So they said to watch that as it's flagged. I don't know where we'll be. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm just reporting on facts.
Unfortunately, most strains have now weakened. So, but that doesn't mean that would necessarily continue. And who knows what nature does.
Exactly. So as we'll do every month, we'll report back to you next month. We'll have 2 payments in September and we'll give you the actual number.
2 payments for September?
Yes.
Questions for Terry? Hearing none? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And if you have any questions on this packet, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you. Next up. Deb. Welcome.
Good to go?
Yep.
Okay.
I didn't get a copy. Anything that should be been
I
included?
did.
Maybe it's attached? It's in there. By itself. Okay. Oh, there it is. Yes, attached. Thank
Okay,
you.
so this is our general fund budget status report for July of '23. When the taxation is posted, the total revenues will be $344,776,372, which is very similar to the prior year. We are lower on our federal aid. That is due to the nature that we were still getting COVID and CARES money in 22. We are higher in our other revenues. This is predominantly based on interest and earnings and sales tax. Our personal services and fringe benefits are through the 15th pay period, which is similar to last year. At the end of July, we had 363 vacant funded positions. That was down 5 from June. But in July 22, we had 342. Pre-COVID, we had 189.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month. All right. Next up, Paul. This is a request of 3 local laws to provide real property tax exemptions for the following. Number 1, members of volunteer fire companies and ambulance services. Number 2, the unremarried surviving spouses of formerly enrolled members. Number 3, the unmarried spouses of such volunteers killed in the line of duty. Per New York Real Property Tax Law, Section 466A, recognizing the essential functions of volunteer firefighters and ambulance service workers in the community. The adoption of this local law to provide the exemption included in number 1 shall also repeal and replace the existing local law number 5 of 2005 to conform to the terms of New York RPTL. What's that? Real Property Tax Law, Section 466A. Motion in a second, please. O'Donnell, Hines, Paul.
Thank you for allowing me to present. I will
Who
try
was,
to be,
Purdue? Okay.
I'll try to be brief because I realize we're running a bit late.
Take your time. This is important.
It is important, and thank you for the opportunity to present here. What we're proposing is 3 local laws that are going to, as you said, allow us to provide an exemption, the maximum that's allowed by law. The governor passed a law back in December that we are acting on now so that we can try to get this exemption on the property taxes for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. It replaces an existing law that was in effect that was capped though, and basically the amount that a firefighter or ambulance worker could get for the county taxes was less than $10. And they were far better off just taking a $200 income tax reduction that was available and is still available. But in this case, what we're proposing is if we go to the 10% after 2 years of service, then the people would be able to potentially save more if they own homes. This is assuming also that the towns and the school districts will also go along with it. We can't control them, but we can at least set the stage to allow them to follow our guidance. Without, again, I don't want to go into too much detail here. What we did was we tried to craft the laws to allow it to be as flexible as possible, as broad as possible, to allow as many people as possible that volunteer to get it. So I'm suggesting that we do it after only 2 years of service. The law allowed us to be flexible on that, but it has to be at least 2 years, and also up to 10%, and I'm suggesting at least the 10%. What it comes down to is that the law is somewhat restrictive, but if we go to the most that it allows, it's the most allowable by law, but it's the least that we can do for our volunteers.
Okay, thank you. Questions from committee members? Mr. Hines, do you have to abstain?
No, I checked with Betsy. I will be a recipient as a 20-year member. She said I don't, but voted enrolled. The only thing I would point out is that unless the school districts and all the other pieces of government jump on this, no one will take advantage of this because the state currently gives the volunteers $200 off a income tax credit. You can't have both. So what we're doing is useless unless the schools and everybody else jumps on board because you can't have both. I know that Mr. Wiley pointed out that it's possible the governor may change that, but as it stands now, currently we get $10 from this plan, or we would get $200 from the income tax. Under our new plan, if we make the change, I think it said, what, $98 on the year average?
On average, it's about 100.
So no one would take it because they would take the 200 from the state rather than the 98 from this. So hopefully the school districts jump on, that's where the real benefit would be.
Yeah.
Or the state allows people to take both. No one's going to join the fire department for this, I can tell you that.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Right, so that was my question on how much exactly each person would get on the county level. So when we pass, this is gonna pass, so when we pass this, what does the school have to do? Do they have to pass their own, or?
If they want,
pass
each
10%?
municipality can do what they want.
If you pass 10%, though, are they tied into 10%?
No, they're not.
But
They
they
can
can
pass
put
whatever.
all on, do 2%,
Whatever
whatever they want.
Right. So far, everyone that has passed it, I believe everyone, there may be an exception where somebody did less than 10%, but so far everyone is doing 10% and most everyone's doing the 2 year.
All the schools?
The few schools that have passed it, yes. The schools tend to drag their feet to some degree on these things. Everyone has until March 1st of each of each year, because that's taxable status date. And the way the law was written, it allowed for a 3-year sunset. So the schools they have to act by this March 1st, or else they have the next March 1st before they would have to act. And there is something in place right now, as we said, it's $9 and change.
It seems pretty typical for the state to think you do something important, but then there's something that always changes.
Well, in this case, again, I think the state's heart is in the right place. They're trying to do something.
But they should know, they wrote the law, they should know that, like Mr. Hines said, you can't have both, and they should know the percentages.
Right. Well, there should be something for income tax deduction either way, because that would allow people that don't own a house or own other property if they rent, that they could also get one, because obviously not all the volunteers in our firefighters and volunteer ambulance corps own property.
Mr.
It would be easier to tell me which schools are or which schools aren't.
Right now, it'd be easier to tell you which schools are, but I don't know exactly which ones are. I'm assuming that most of them are going to go through with this before March 1st. A lot of them were in the process of discussing it. Only a couple of school districts are going through.
Do you have a list that I could get?
I could try to track that down. It's not the type of thing that we necessarily have at our disposal. I can have my department look into it though.
And which ones?
I think they were working on it.
Mike,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Explain to me why the school has to do it for
it's a taxing entity.
ours, for ours to go.
No. Each taxing entity has to pass the law.
Okay, but that doesn't impact ours at all.
Not at all.
Okay,
No.
all right.
We're
So-
just the smallest portion.
Sure. So they can get either the $200 on their tax return or take advantage of ours.
Or take advantage of any of them when it comes down to it. So right, so
And any of them that will be implemented would be at a 10% maximum level.
correct.
Okay, so your calculation is straightforward. The average home is 360,000, median home price in Orange County, 360,000. That's how you come up with the tax on that,
Yes.
and $98.80. So for someone to take advantage, to Mr. Hines' point, their house value has to be taxed at more than $750,000.
If we're only talking about the county's portion, correct. But when it comes down to it, the towns, a lot of the towns are going forward with it. They're roughly equivalent to what the county pays in taxes. And then if the schools go for it, obviously they're 75 to 80% of people's property.
So they can pick and choose which one of them they do on
Well, no,
on the different
when a
taxing entity?
when a person applies for the exemption, they would get any of the exemptions that they are eligible for. So if the county has done it, anyone within the county, if they apply for it, would get the counties.
Let's say someone owns a home and the county has done it, the town that they live in has done it, the school district where they live has done it. What happens?
If they applied, they would get them all, but they would not be able to take the $200.
So they would take them all, see how much all of them equal, and if they equal more than $200, they would take them. Otherwise, they're better off taking the $200 on their tax return.
Correct. And right now, for the most part,
But the law is not, you can't do both.
the law says you cannot do both. Correct.
See if it makes sense to do, but someone mentioned that the reason that you want to have it on the tax return is for people that don't own a home.
Correct.
And for this to really help any of the volunteers, it'd be good to be able to do both.
Right.
Any chance that the state is looking at that and going to change it?
There's always a chance. When it comes to.
Have you heard that they're looking?
Yes,
into-
they are looking into it, and as far as I know, that has gone forward. I believe it was approved by the Assembly. I believe it's on the governor's desk. So she would have until the end of the year to approve.
Okay, that's good to know.
You might know someone who could put in his 2 cents.
Let's see what we can do.
Mr. Hines first.
Yeah, I just want to point out that I asked Commissioner Tanker Sally last year to give me the numbers of how many people were involved in it. And I think he said the volunteers were about 2,500, maybe on the fire side and a few hundred on the ambulance side.
700 on the ambulance side, yes.
Yeah, so we did a survey within my fire district, and I think there was only about 22 people that would qualify because they actually have to own a home. And I know in my neighboring district, Horn Hudson, I think there was only 11. So the 2,500 it's not going to cost us a lot of money. It's the bottom line. if each person's getting $100 bill, it's not even gonna be, I would submit to you, it's probably under 700 people total that will even qualify.
And may I point out also that it actually, it's not merely costing the county anything, it's just redistributing how people pay the taxes. So it doesn't really affect the county a dime on the one hand. It's taking the tax burden and shifting it slightly to others. But what we're talking about here is less than 1% of either the taxable value or the county's levy.
Okay, Mr. O'Donnell.
Yeah, so I just had a suggestion for our two deputy commissioners, which you can bring up in your committee, that they sort of keep track of this. If I can see, many of the people that don't own their homes now, who don't own them in 15 years, and then they're eligible for that 20-year lifetime exemption. So they should be like every year. And I know that how you count the year services, how many times you go out on a call, is that gonna be
No,
part of this? or
the
no?
service award program is not tied to this. It's just if you're an active firefighter. And the
That's all
chief
good.
officer or the fire district has to certify that this individual is eligible.
Every year they have to certify too.
Correct, and the fire companies are responsible for doing that at this time.
Right, and they'll send a list, so.
But this doesn't kick in until 2025, so there's nothing to monitor yet. Just so you know, right? Am I correct?
He's right.
It has to go to March and then it has to go.
To the next year.
For us, as far as the county's
We should be able to keep track of the kids that stay and been serving that long. Right, that they don't have to go back to
A
that.
kid like me.
Exactly.
We're all kids, still kids. Mike, did you have a question?
No, I'm just gonna say that you only have to apply once, right? You have to apply every year.
Correct, the
Well,
way
but you have to
the
certify.
that, you have
You
to
have to
track.
certify every year.
No, the
You're a fire department.
fire department does.
Unless you got the 20-year.
Right, then you have to do it.
Yeah, but, and he said, interesting enough, I could sell my house, as long as I stayed in Orange County, I would get the exemption on the new house, right?
As long as you stay in Orange County.
So that's.
Okay,
Thank you. And if a person qualifies for multiple exemptions, they can take them all if they were a veteran and, well, if I were
yeah, senior,
senior,
Yes.
and they can get each one of these.
all right.
Just one thing, it just seems to me, it's like one of these others unfunded state mandates that they push on us, that they would be better off to double the tax break that they give, the tax credit that they give to firefighters. It would cover the ones who don't own property, and make it more valuable in that regard.
Unless the schools jump up.
Well, then triple.
All right, any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried, thank you. And last thing, deed sale parcel.
Is that on all three, Lee?
Yes. Deed sale parcels. Motion and a second for discussion, please. Mr. Paduk, I'll second. One parcel, Woodbury. Paul.
Yes, one parcel in Woodbury. This is a very narrow, odd-shaped triangle lot that is has a tremendous amount of frontage along the road and along the rear of it on I-7, the thruway. And we finally have an adjoining property owner who is bidding nearly what is owed in back tax deductions and interest. It was what the minimum bid was last year at $1,700. So this is the adjoining property owner who is a logical purchaser in this case, and I suggest that I recommend that we accept it.
So how long is it?
It's 500.
370 by 570.
370.
by 570 and about 130 or so on the third side. Doing the math, roughly, it's a little over half an acre. That's it. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you can't build anything on it, I wouldn't think.
Billboards might fit on it if that was
Yep.
allowed.
Either that or a T, so that you can, since you're the owner of the property next door, you can put a flag, with grass, golf green.
Not if I were the one to.
Put them through the windshield of the people heading north on the throughway. All right, any other discussion? The Paul recommends we accept his recommendation of yes. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the recommendation? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Motion to adjourn is in order.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And carried. Thank you, everyone, and we're now off.